Lift up your heart and praise. Lift up your hands and praise. Lift up your voice.
And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to everyone worshiping with us at home. We're so thankful to be here today. The name of the message is Living Waters Heal, but Kool-Aid Can Kill. It's the truth. When you encounter someone who has become quite committed or accepting in their mind to some idea or belief that others may find unorthodox or radical, have you ever heard someone say, they've drank the Kool-Aid? Well, it's sad to say there's a bad reason that they came about. That's a good example of why it's said. But this saying originates from a mass suicide/murder that took place in November 1978 in Guyana, South America, at a religious settlement known as Jonestown. It was run by a man named Jim Jones, and over 900 people died that day from drinking powdered soft drink laced with potassium cyanide. They say that some of the folks were injected, but nevertheless, overwhelmingly, it was because of their unquestioning commitment to Jones. At his direction, they drank the drink, and they gave it to their children as well. And I can still remember the news videos that were coming across of the landscape just littered with bodies, and it was terrible. Kraft Foods would really have liked it if their product had not received the association with the event that it did. They say that there was actually Kool-Aid and Flavor Aid in their supplies there, right? But Kool-Aid has a much larger name recognition, and I guess you have to take the good with the bad, you know. And thus the saying was born that when someone has committed themselves to a belief that others believe is contrary to sound doctrine, they've drank the Kool-Aid, all right? Sometimes a lot of people can drink the Kool-Aid, all right? Let's look at Revelation chapter 17. Let's see, we're going to start reading in verse 1. We're on page 1205 in the 1998 ISR. Revelation 17:1, and it says, And one of the 7 messengers who had the 7 bowls came and spoke with me, saying to me, Come, I shall show you the judgment of the great whore sitting on many waters, with whom the sovereigns of the earth committed whoring, and the inhabitants of the earth were made, what's that word? Drunk with the wine of her whoring. All right? They've drank the Kool-Aid, amen? All right? And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast covered with names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup filled with abominations and the filthiness of her whoring, and upon her forehead a name written, a secret, Babel the Great, the mother of the whores and the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the set apart ones, and with the blood of the witnesses of Yahshua, and having seen her, I marveled, greatly marveled. Now, Revelation tells us that the whole world marveled after the beast. Amen? There's a lot of drinking Kool-Aid when you're talking about the whole world. All right? See, it doesn't have to just be a minority. All right? But here's the thing. Don't you imagine that the whole world who is wandering after the beast would believe that the people who are following Yahweh and Yahshua are the ones who drank the Kool-Aid? Sure. There's a lot of people that think that we've drank the Kool-Aid. All right? But here's an interesting thing. Yahweh's people are drinking something. But it's not the proverbial Kool-Aid that leads to death. It is the living water which leads to everlasting life. All right? Look with me in John chapter 4. And I hope what we look at today is we see two different things going back and forth here, that we see a cup mixed with her abominations versus the living waters. All right? John chapter 4 and verse 1, and it says, "So when the master knew that the Pharisees had heard that Yahshua made and immersed more taught ones than Yochanan," that would be John, "although Yahshua himself did not immerse, but his taught ones, he left Yehuda," that would be Judah, "and went away again to Galilee. And he had to pass through Shomaron," that would be Samaria. So he came to the city of Shomaron called Shechem, near the piece of land Yaakov, that would be Jacob, gave to his son Yosef. And Yaakov's fountain was there. So Yahshua, being wearied from the journey, was sitting thus at the fountain. It was about the 6th hour. A woman of Shomaron came to draw water. And Yahshua said to her, "Give me to drink." For his taught ones had gone off into the city to buy food. The woman of Shomaron therefore said to him, "How is it that you, being a Yehudit, a Jew, ask a drink from me, a woman of Shomaron, a Samaritan? For Yehudim do not associate with Shomaronites." Yahshua answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of Elohim, and who it was who says to you, 'Give me to drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." And the woman said to him, "Master, you have no vessel, and the well is deep. From where then do you have living water? Are you greater than our father Yaakov, who gave us the well and drank from it himself and his sons and his cattle?" And Yahshua answered and said to her, "Everyone drinking this water shall thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I give him shall certainly never thirst, and the water that I give him shall become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life." All right? So this water becomes a fountain. Right? And the woman said to him, "Master, give me this water so that I do not thirst, nor come here to draw." And Yahshua said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." And the woman answered and said, "I have no husband." And Yahshua said to her, "You have well said, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." And the woman said, "Master, I see that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where one needs to worship." Yahshua said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you shall neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, because the deliverance is of the Yehudim. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in what? Spirit and truth. For the Father also does seek such to worship him." Let me tell you that worshiping in spirit and truth has no place with drinking from a cup filled with a mixture of abominations. All right? Verse 24. "Elohim is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship him in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, the one who is called Anointed. When that one comes, he shall announce to us all." And Yahshua said to her, "I who am speaking to you am he." And upon this his taught ones came, and they were marveling that he was speaking with a woman. However, no one said, what do you seek, or why do you speak with her? And the woman then left her water jug and went away to the city and said to the men, Come, see a man who told me all that I have done. Is this not the Messiah? And they went out of the city and were coming to him. But in the meantime, his taught ones were asking him, saying, Rabbi, eat. And he said to them, I have food to eat which you do not know. And then his taught ones said to each other, Did anyone bring him food to eat? And Yeshua said to them, My food is to do the desire of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. Do you not say there are still 4 months and the harvest comes? See, I say to you, lift up your eyes and see the fields, for they are white with the harvest already. He who is reaping receives a reward and gathers fruit for everlasting life, so that both he who is sowing and he who is reaping rejoice together. For in this the word is true, one sows and another reaps. I sent you to reap that for which you have not labored. Others have labored, and you have entered into their labors. And many of the Shemarites, the Samaritans of that city, believed in him because of the word of the woman who witnessed, He told me all that I have done. Therefore, when the Shemarites came to him, they were asking him to stay with them. And he stayed there 2 days, and many more believed because of his word. And they said to the woman, We no longer believe because what you said, for we ourselves have heard, and we know that it is truly the Messiah, the Savior of the world. And we're going to see something about this here in a little bit, but the Jews hated the Samaritans. You know, they were Torah keepers of their own understanding. They didn't affiliate with as you heard the woman say, why are you talking to me? It's not right for a Jew to talk to a Samaritan. All right. And so it's not only surprising to most people there that Yeshua was talking to this woman, but he stayed there for 2 days and taught them more. All right. Now, this may sound like a radical idea, but I just don't think that you can worship Yahweh in spirit and truth while mixing it up with all sorts of heathen customs, names, and practices. What do you think? Yeah, all right. Call me crazy, but if you're going to drink the living waters, you got to stay away from the mixture in the cup of the great whore Babylon. Amen. All right. Now, Yeshua always pointed the people back to the Father Yahweh and his Torah instructions. All right? So let's see if that idea is a new concept and if Yeshua is the first one dealing with this. All right? Turn with me to Jeremiah chapter 2. Jeremiah chapter 2. We're going to be on page 466. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 1, page 466. There's a lot of stuff we're going to look at here. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Go, and you shall cry in the hearing of Jerusalem, saying, Thus said Yahweh, I remember you, the kindness of your youth, the love of your bridehood, when you went after me in the wilderness, in the land that was not sown. Yisrael was set apart to Yahweh, the first fruits of his increase. All who ate of it became guilty. Evil came upon them, declares Yahweh. Hear the word of Yahweh, O house of Jacob, and all the clans of the house of Israel. Thus said Yahweh, What unrighteousness have your fathers found in me, that they have gone far from me, and went after worthlessness, and became worthless? And did not they say, Where is Yahweh, who brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim, that be Egypt, who led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and pits, through a land of drought and of shadow of death, a land that no one passed through, and where no one dwelt? Then I brought you into a garden land to eat its fruit and its goodness. But when you entered, you defiled my land and made my inheritance an abomination. The priest did not say, where is Yahweh? And those who handle the Torah did not know me. Well, we kind of have that today, don't we? All right? And those who handle the Torah did not know me. And the shepherds transgressed against me. And this is, of course, referring to their religious leaders when it's talking about the shepherds here, right? And the prophets prophesied by who? Baal, and walked after matters that did not profit. You think they're drinking the Kool-Aid? Therefore I still contend with you, declares Yahweh, and with your children's children I contend. For pass beyond the isles of Kittim and see, and send to Kedar and observe well, and see if there has been any like this. Has a nation changed its mighty ones, which were not mighty ones? But my people have changed my esteem from that which does not profit. Be amazed, O heaven, at this, and be frightened. Be utterly dried up, declares Yahweh. For my people have done two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of what? Living waters. That's why I said this was important. Living waters. This is the same thing that Yahshua keeps pointing us back to. And Yahweh's talking about here just like Yahshua is talking about in his day. They've rejected Yahweh. And Yahweh is where your living waters come from. All right? Continuing in 13. I'll do it again. For my people have done two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew out for themselves cisterns, cracked cisterns, which do not hold water. All right? In other words, they have rejected Yahweh, which is the fountain of living waters, and made up for themselves their own worship systems. That's what this is talking about. They've made their own worship systems. In this case, they've made their own idols. In modern worship, there's still idolatry, but there's all sorts of mixing and things in there. They have made for themselves cisterns that are cracked and they do not hold water. They are not reaching out to the fountain of living waters. Verse 14. Is Israel a servant? Was he born in the house? Why is he given to plunder? The young lions roared at him. They growled and made his land waste. His cities have been burned without inhabitant. Watch this. Even the sons of Noph and Takpanches have shaven the crown of your head. Have you not done this to yourself by forsaking Yahweh your Elohim when he led you in the way? And now, why take the way of Mitzrayim, look, to drink the waters of Sichor? That's the Nile River. All right? Or why take the way of Ashur to drink the waters of the river? That would be the Euphrates. All right, see. So note that Yahweh likens their association with these people with drinking that which does not bring life. Okay? That's the same thing that happens when we wind up polluting his worship with all these practices and so forth from places like Egypt and places like Assyria. All right? It's no different. It's the proverbial Kool-Aid, if you will. All right? Your own evil instructs you. See there? Your own evil instructs you, and your backslidings reprove you. Know therefore and see that it is evil and bitter that you have forsaken Yahweh your Elohim, and that my fear is not in you, declares the Master, Yahweh of hosts. All right. For of old you have broken your yoke and tore off your bonds, and you said, I am not serving you when you, on every high hill and under every green tree you lay down a whore. Yet I have planted you a choice vine. All of it is a true seed. Now then, have you turned before me into a degenerate plant of a strange vine? Although you wash yourself with lye and use much soap, yet your crookedness is ingrained before me, declares the Master Yahweh. How do you say I am not defiled? I have not gone after the Baals. See your way in the valleys? Know what you have done? A swift dromedary breaking loose in her ways. That's a camel. A wild donkey used to the wilderness, sniffing the wind in the desire of her being, in her time of mating, who turns her away. All those who seek her need not weary themselves. In her month they find her. Keep your foot from being bare and your throat from thirst. But you said, it is useless because I love strangers, and after them I go. As the thief is ashamed when he's found out, so is the house of Israel ashamed. They and their sovereigns and their heads and their priests and their prophets, saying to a tree, you are my father, and to a stone, you gave birth to me. For they have turned their back to me, and not their face, but in the time of their calamity they say, arise and save us. But where are your mighty ones that you have made for yourselves? Let them arise. See, if they save you in the time of your calamity, because your mighty ones have become as many as your cities, O Yehudah. Why do you complain to me? You all have transgressed against me, declares Yahweh. In vain I have smitten your children. They received no instruction. Your sword was devoured. Your sword has devoured your prophets like a destroying lion. O generation, see the word of Yahweh. Have I been a wilderness to Israel, or a land of darkness? Why do my people say, we have broken loose, we come to you no more? Would a maiden forget her ornaments, or a bride her headband? Yet my people have forgotten me days without number. Why do you embellish your way to seek love? Therefore you have taught the evil women your ways. Even on your skirts is found the blood of the lives of the poor innocents. You do not find them breaking in, but in spite of all these you say, because I'm innocent, certainly his displeasure shall turn from me. That's kind of like saying, I'm basically a pretty good person. You ever heard that? Oh, he's good with me. I'm basically a pretty. That's not what Yahweh wants. He's not talking about you being a basically good person. He's talking about you turning and serving Him and loving Him with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. Verse 35, you say, because I am innocent, certainly his displeasure shall turn from me. See, I shall bring judgment on you because you say, I have not sinned. Why do you go about so much to change your way? Even of Mitzrayim you are to be ashamed. As you were ashamed of Ashur, even from this one you shall go forth with your hands on your head. For Yahweh has rejected those who trust, and you shall not prosper by them. And so we're going to go over to Jeremiah 16 now, since we've already read this other part. We're going to turn to Jeremiah 16. And we're going to go right into 17 as we do. I'll tell you where to skip down to as we get there. And remember what I said before about the Samaritans and about how the Yehudim hated the Samaritans. All right, Jeremiah 16, verse 19. O Yahweh, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge, in the day of distress the Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers have inherited only falsehood, futility. Do you see who's saying that? The Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers have inherited only falsehood, futility, and there's no value in them. Would a man make mighty ones for himself, which are not mighty ones? Therefore, see, I am causing them to know. This time I cause them to know my hand and my might, and they shall know that my name is Yahweh. Okay? So, if the Gentiles are coming and saying our fathers have inherited lies, why do we want to take their fathers' lies and pull them into Yahweh's worship? That's a good question with an obvious answer. Well, it's obvious to us. 17 verse 5. Thus said Yahweh, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his arm, and whose heart turns away from Yahweh. What happens when you don't drink the living waters? This. For he shall be like a shrub in the desert. See there? And not see when good comes, and shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, a salt land that is not inhabited. But the one who drinks the living waters. Verse 7. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh, and whose trust is Yahweh. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river. I wonder which river. And does not see when heat comes, and his leaf shall be green, and in the year of drought he is not anxious, nor does he cease from yielding fruit. The heart is crooked above all, and desperately sick. Who shall know it? And remember that when someone says, we talked about that earlier, well, he knows my heart. Verse 10. I, Yahweh, search the heart. So yeah, he sure does know. Right? I try the kidneys, and I give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds. As a partridge that broods but does not hatch, so is he who gets riches, but not by right. It leaves him in the midst of his days, and at his end he is a fool. An esteemed throne, exalted from the beginning, is the place of our set-apart place. O Yahweh, the expectation of Yisrael, all who forsake you are put to shame. Those who depart from me shall be written in the earth, because they have forsaken Yahweh. Here it is again, the fountain of living waters. There's your living waters, and that's not the Kool-Aid, folks. Then see what it says next. Heal me, O Yahweh, so that I am healed. Save me so that I am saved, for you are my praise. You know, and so we see that what Yahshua is dealing with there, that's not something new. People that should be living in the blessings of Yahweh have been rejecting him for a long time. And the devil uses all sorts of tactics to try to turn you away from the living waters. And that's why people will say things like, oh, they're in that cult. They've drank the Kool-Aid, you know, and all that stuff. We don't need to listen to that, because see, what we're relying on is this right here. We're not relying on some man that's leading us down the primrose path or giving us crazy instructions or whatnot. We're looking to what the Word says. Amen. Amen. All right, now there's lots of reasons in the Scripture to trust Yahweh and not man, as this is talking about. Because that's what this is talking about, man-made religion. All right. Let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 11. We are going to be on page 1124. We're going to start reading in verse 12. Second Corinthians 11, verse 12. And I shall go on doing as I do, in order to cut off the occasion from those desiring an occasion, so that in that which they boast they might be found also as we are. This is Paul writing here, of course. And it says, for such are false emissaries. Your version may say apostles. It means sent out ones. For such are false emissaries. What are those next two words? Deceptive workers, masquerading as emissaries of Messiah. And no wonder, for Hasatan himself masquerades as a messenger of light. It is not surprising then if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness, those who shall be according to their works. See, too often people will follow the guy with the Kool-Aid dispenser. They will. They oftentimes put up very attractive stands. All right? They put up very attractive stands. And there's some really nice churches around, you know. But if they are teaching against Yahweh's commands, they're serving up that which does not give life. Okay? It does not lead to life. There's just two verses here. You can turn here if you want to. Matthew 5:19 and 20. And Yeshua says, "Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men so shall be called least in the reign of the heavens. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the reign of the heavens. For I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall by no means enter into the reign of the heavens." You shall by no means enter into the reign of the heavens. All right? The Pharisees taught a man-made religion and not the truth of Yahweh. And so when Yeshua is saying, if your righteousness doesn't exceed that of the scribes and the Pharisees, we can get into the same problem if we just get a different man-made system that winds up with the same end to it, where we're nullifying Yahweh's commands and teaching not to keep His Torah. All right? Paul warns against false teachers many times. Look at 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. We're going to start reading in verse 1. Second Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. Paul's writing to this young minister. "But know this, that in the last days hard times shall come. For men shall be lovers of self, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, thankless, wrongdoers, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, fierce, haters of good, betrayers, reckless, puffed up, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of Elohim." Now watch this. "Having a form of reverence, but denying its power, and turn away from these." That's a pretty big list of descriptive words there, isn't it? All right. And you know what he's not talking about? He's not talking about folks that you can look at and tell they're criminals. He's talking about having a form of reverence. He's talking again about masquerading as messengers of light. All right? Verse 6. "For among them are those who creep into households and captivate silly women loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth." Now I want to tell you this real quick before we go on any further. You can do a lot of learning without coming to the knowledge of the truth. You know that's right. You can go in the library and just look around, but you can get on the internet and you can find all kind of stuff where people have spent eons learning and learning and learning, and they're still talking about how to get out from under Yahweh with a form of reverence where it looks like they're trying to be adherent to Yahweh's ways. All right? Always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Verse 8, "And as Yochanan and Mamre opposed Moses, so do these also oppose the truth. Men of corrupt minds, found worthless concerning the belief. But they shall go on further, for their folly shall be obvious to us all, as also that of those men became. But you did closely follow my teaching, the way of life, the purpose, the belief, the patience, the love, the endurance, the persecutions, the sufferings which came to me at Antioch, at Iconium and Lystra. What persecutions I bore, that out of them all the Master delivered me. And indeed, all of those wishing to live reverently in Messiah YHWH shall be persecuted. But evil men and impostors shall go on to the worst, leading astray and being led astray. But you stay in what what you have learned and trusted, having known from whom you have learned, and that from a babe you have known the set-apart Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for deliverance through belief in the Messiah, YHWH. All Scripture is breathed by Elohim and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for setting straight, for instructions in what? Righteousness. That the man of Elohim might be fitted, equipped for every good work. 2 or 3 things here. One, that sounds like a place to go to get living water. Amen? All right? Another thing too is when Paul wrote this letter to Timothy, and he said, all Scripture is breathed by Elohim and profitable for teaching and for reproof and setting straight, for instructions in righteousness. The New Testament hadn't been written yet. All right, so that's really important to remember. There may have been a piece or two of it, but it was not. It was not written. And yet, Paul's talking about all Scripture meaning something. I think I know what he's talking about. Amen. It wasn't what's on the Kool-Aid package. All right. Now, here's a parable where YHWH demonstrates between these two systems. All right. And one is the results from drinking man's Kool-Aid, and the other is of the living water. All right, let's take a look at Luke 16. We're going to start reading on page 1004. Luke 16, we're going to start reading in verse 19. But there was a certain rich man who used to dress in purple and fine linen and live luxuriously every day. And I want to share this with you because this is something you learn reading ahead before this. YHWH is saying these things in earshot of the Pharisees. Okay, they're standing around hearing this. And he says some things in here that makes it very obvious who he's speaking about. All right, we'll look at a couple of those as we go through. But there was a certain rich man who used to dress in purple and fine linen and lived luxuriously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Eleazar, being covered with sores, who was placed at his gate, and longing to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Indeed, even the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to be that the beggar died, and he was carried by the messengers to the bosom of Abraham. And the rich man also died and was buried. And while suffering tortures in the grave, having lifted up his eyes, he saw Abraham far away and Eleazar in his bosom. Your translation may say Lazarus. And crying out, he said, Father Abraham, have compassion on me, and send Eleazar to dip the tip of his finger in what? Water, and cool my tongue, for I am suffering in this flame. Now, I've got this question before we go any further. If the rich man's laying down there in all this torment and everything, what good is it going to do for Eleazar to touch his tongue with water? I mean, you'd think he'd need gallons and gallons, in a fire hose, right? That's because I believe he's talking about that living water right here. He's wanting to be rescued from the torment that he's in, and he's realizing something. He's realizing that what he had lived, that system that he lived, had landed him not in the reign of Elohim, but in the grave, all right? But Abraham, verse 25, said, Son, remember that in your life you received your good, and likewise Eleazar the evil. But now he is comforted and you are suffering. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been set, so that those who wish to pass from here to you are unable, nor do those from there pass to us. One of the reasons is because when you get in one system and you get immersed in that system, that man-made system, and you drink the Kool-Aid, you have a really hard time drinking the living waters, because you won't seek Elohim, because you'll follow the system over here. By the same token, when you're seeking the living waters, you don't want anything to do with that man-made system. Amen. That'll put a chasm there in between you. All right. Verse 27. And he said, "Then I beg you, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers." Guess how many brothers Judah had? That was a little hint there. He could have said 4 brothers. He could have said, 37 brothers. 5 brothers. Let him, Eleazar, let him warn them, lest they also come to this place of torture. Send them over there. So tell them don't drink the Kool-Aid. And what does Yahshua in the parable have Abraham say? Abraham said to them, they have what? Moshe and the prophets. Let them hear them. Because that's where the answer is. That's where the instructions that lead to Yahweh are for the living waters. All right? And he said in verse 30, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they shall repent." But he said to them, "If they do not hear Moshe and the prophets, neither would they be persuaded, even if one should rise from the dead." And you know what? They weren't. They weren't. You see, too late is too late. All right? The time is now. Matthew 7. Verse 13. Matthew 7, verse 13. Enter through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter in through it, because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to what? Life. And there are few who find it, but beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are savage wolves. By their fruits you shall know them. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? So every good tree yields good fruit, but a rotten tree yields wicked fruit. A good tree is unable to yield wicked fruit, and a rotten tree to yield good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then by their fruits you shall know them. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the reign of the heavens, but those who are doing something. The desire of my Father in the heavens. They're not setting up crack cisterns. They're not making their own systems. They're doing the desire of the Father in heaven. All right. 22. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name and cast out demons in your name and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. There are some ministers that I've heard that they always use the NIV there, because what it says is, "Depart from me, you evildoers." I think it's what it says, you evildoers. All right. Well, that's not what's in the text. But when you water it down like that, that can mean all kind of things. But it certainly doesn't mean me. Because I'm basically I'm basically a good person, see. I'm basically a good person. That's these child molesters and people that are robbing from old folks and, and stuff like that. Well, guess what? That's not what Yahshua said. Yahshua said, you who work lawlessness. And, I just tend to think that when these guys are doing things like that, it kind of makes them sort of suspect to what Yahshua is talking about here with these wolves in sheep's clothing kind of thing. Anyway, verse 24. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. And it came to be, when Yahshua had ended these words, that the people were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one possessing authority and not as the scribes. And we see the living waters as part of the reward all the way back at the end of the book. So let's turn back to the end of the book before we conclude today. We're going to look in Revelation 21. I'm going to start reading in verse 1. Page 1209. Revelation 21:1. And I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth, for the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. And I, Yochanan, that'd be John, saw the set-apart city, renewed Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from Elohim, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, See, the booth of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them, and be their Elohim. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying. And there shall be no more pain, for the former matters have passed away. And he who was sitting on the throne said, See, I make all matters new. And he said to me, Write, for these words are true and trustworthy. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. To the one who thirsts, I shall give of the fountain of water of what? Life, without payment. The one who overcomes shall inherit all this, and I shall be his Elohim. But as for the cowardly and the untrustworthy, the abominable and murderers and those who whore and drug sorcerers and idolaters and all the false, their part, they get some water too. Only it's not really water, is it? Their part is in the lake which burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. All right, now look at 22 verse 1. So I'm like, I want that fountain of water of life instead of that lake of fire. I mean, verse 20, Revelation 22, verse 1. And he showed me again here a river of water of life, clear as crystal, coming down from the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb. In the middle of its street, on either side of the river, was a tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And no longer shall there be any curse, and the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be upon their foreheads. And night shall be no more, and they shall have no need of a lamp or the light of the sun, because Yahweh Elohim shall give them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. And he said to me, These words are trustworthy and true. And Yahweh Elohim of the set-apart prophets has sent his messenger to show his servants what has to take place with speed. See, I am coming speedily. Blessed is he who guards the words of the prophecy of this book. And I, Yochanan, saw and heard these matters. And when I heard and saw, I fell down to worship before the feet of the messenger who showed me these matters. And he said to me, See, do not, for I am your fellow servant, and of your brothers the prophets, and of those who are guarding the words of this book. Worship Elohim. And he said to me, do not seal the words of this prophecy of this book, because the time is near. He who does wrong, let him do more wrong. He who is filthy, let him be more filthy. He who is righteous, let him be more righteous. He who is set apart, let him be more set apart. See, I am coming speedily, and my reward is with me to give to each according to his work. Is that not what we read in Jeremiah 17:10? It said, stay here. I, Yahweh, search the heart. I try the kidneys. I give every man according to his way, according to the fruit of his deeds. See, it's not something new. All right. Verse 13. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are those doing something. His commands. Which would be what? The desire of his Father. Amen. All right. Blessed are those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs under the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. But outside are the dogs, and those who enchant with drugs, and those who whore, and the murderers, and the idolaters, and all who love and do falsehood. I, YHWH, have sent my messenger to witness to you these matters in the assemblies. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. And the Spirit and the bride says, come. And he who hears, let him say, come. And he who what? Thirsts, come. And he who desires it, take the water of life without paying. For I witness to everyone hearing the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to them, Elohim shall add to him the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of this book, of this prophecy, Elohim shall take away his part from the book of life and out of the set apart city which are written in this book. He that bears witness of these matters says, yes, I am coming speedily. Amen. Yes, come, Master YHWH. The favor of our Master Yeshua Messiah be with the set apart ones. Amen. So there you have it. We have a choice. Yahweh tells us what to drink if we want everlasting life in the reign of the heavens. Amen? In the reign of Elohim. All right? So what do you want to drink? What do you want to drink? The living waters of Elohim or a man-made mixture? You might be ridiculed by the whole world, but my suggestion is this. Drink the living waters and leave the Kool-Aid alone. Living waters heal, but Kool-Aid can kill. Yevrekeka Yahweh ba'ish bareka ya'er Yahweh panavaleka bikuneka Yasa Yahweh panavaleka v'yasem laka shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you his complete contentment.